You can donate to the channel if you think we're doing a good job. Or you could ask us questions, join us in the chat, anything you like. Tim, welcome back.
Yeah,
Just a
hi.
small show tonight, but yeah, but time is of the essence. It's being stolen from us. So let's make the most of our minutes together. Two peas in a podcast.
Yeah, your daylight savings was just happening this weekend, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah. So I I just learned from Hal Turner's show that there's been an outbreak of some kind of pathogen in Russia, and those that have been hospitalized are experiencing symptoms of severe coughing with blood um in the phlegm when they cough it up. So that's a very serious, deep lung infection by the sounds of it. Now, I know that I've read in the past that the CIA had funded a program to um, bring about a new um, biological agent that would be like the Spanish flu. And they actually excavated a cadaver from Alaska, frozen in the tundra, presumably, so that the corpse was preserved. And they harvested the Spanish flu from 1918, and through gain of function technology, they've altered it so that it's weaponized and extremely virulent and a dangerous pathogen, far more even dangerous than the Spanish flu of 1918, purportedly. So, if that is what is in play in Russia, how it was introduced into the population is unknown. We're looking at a dangerous flu pandemic.
Is it one of these deliberate acts, or is it just a
Well,
natural
I'm
problem?
I'm suspecting a biological agent has been released into the Russian population. The question is how. George and I were just discussing it. George Freund of Conspiracy Cafe, look him up. He's a very good radio show host and has excellent blog entries at, conspiracycafe.com. Please look him up. Anyway, we were talking, George and I, and we seem to be looking at the same possibility, which is that an aerosol spray release may be in play. So, how that could be done, some kind of drone aircraft, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, remember, I mean, this is unrehearsed, but it's related as well. I'm glad that something's happened like that because this is not a normal show, which is good in a way. Remember we had an attack in Britain recently, well, the last 3-4 years, and that was a very bad agent that went into the air. The toxins killed a couple of people, and yeah, Russia did that to us. So I'm wondering if one of the Western countries have done it to them, but it don't make no sense because most people in war they just want to disable the leader, don't they? They're not really bothered about the normal people in Russia, UK, America, wherever you're fighting. They just want the leaders gone. So I don't know why they would punish the public.
Well, I mean, this is the point is that any type of act of bioweapon nature is a crime against humanity. If it's discovered that some foreign government is responsible for any such attack, then it would be a war crime. It's not okay in any respect to attack an innocent civilian population. It's against the Geneva Convention. It's against the protocols that were established by the Nuremberg trials at the end of World War II. The Nuremberg trials developed a Nuremberg code. The Nuremberg Code states that it's not okay to experiment with any agent on a civilian population without their informed consent. So COVID, if it were a gain of function bioweapon, would be against the Nuremberg Code, and the vaccines that were prescribed to fight it would also violate the Nuremberg Code on the grounds that it was an experimental gene therapy. mRNA vaccines were an experimental gene therapy, and they were rolled out without the informed consent of the public. Therefore, it's a crime against humanity. It violates the Nuremberg Code.
I was going to, well, I was going to say, but I think you've took the words right out of my mouth. Wouldn't it be good if eventually, the COVID-19 was classed as a war crime? Really?
Well, it's a crime against humanity. It's a genocidal effort on the part of the global elite, the Illuminati, the Luciferian elite, and it's also the vaccine. The mRNA vaccine is a crime against humanity on the grounds that it violates the Nuremberg Code, where you cannot conduct a medical experiment upon the public without their informed consent. We weren't told a damn thing about the nature of what was in the vaccine. The public was ignorant of that, and frankly speaking, I don't think because of the lack of medical knowledge to do with vaccination and so forth, even telling people what was in the vaccine wouldn't really help, because it's not a vaccine, it's a gene therapy. It's an mRNA vaccine, and that is a gene altering gene therapy. It's not a vaccine. It's argued by those who have created it that it's an advance on traditional vaccine, but it's not a vaccine. It's a gene therapy. So stop calling it a vaccine. You're lying to the public. This kind of disinformation, this kind of manipulation of information is a kind of deceit. And if the public is not properly informed about the nature of the medical experiment, you are violating the Nuremberg Code, which they have done. It's unequivocally true. They have violated the Nuremberg Code with the mRNA gene therapy. And I won't call it a vaccine because it's not a vaccine. They call it the COVID-19 vaccine, but it's not. It's not a vaccine. It's a gene therapy. So imagine altering people's genetics without their informed consent.
You're absolutely. I'm just having camera problems at the moment. Just don't worry about it. It's important that we get this information out.
And I think it's a eugenics experiment to actually alter the human genome. And if we're being genetically altered and being turned into a genetically modified organism without our informed consent because of a gene therapy posing as a vaccine, then not only are we being lied to, but this is criminal fraud committed by the institutions that are supposed to protect our health.
Scary.
How in
Very scary.
God's name are you protecting my health by turning me into a genetically modified organism? This is just ludicrous, and it's got to be exposed. And I think enough information is out there that people can find this out for themselves. But I would, encourage people to do their research and find out the truth about this gene therapy COVID-19 vaccine, as it's called. It's not a vaccine, it's a gene therapy. Look it up. What is it? And see if you're satisfied that it's in your best interest to have this gene therapy.
It's killed many people, and even I had myopathy since the vaccine. As you know, I like traveling, so I'm like many people. We get told you must do this, must do that, and I knew the risks, though that was a problem at the time. But I love traveling, and I do. It's like sex to me. It's got to be done. Meeting new people with good hearts, and yeah, but they shouldn't lie to people for sure.
Yeah, so you took the vaccine simply because you wanted to have permission to fly and you love international travel and you didn't want to have your traveling privileges restricted because you were unvaccinated. Sorry, it wasn't a vaccine you took, it was a gene therapy, an mRNA vaccine. So effectively, my friend that I'm now speaking to, Andy Peacher, is a genetically modified organism.
That's all good. Well, less one kidney, remember?
Yes, that's what I wanted to bring up, is the fact that Andy, sadly, over a year ago, developed a kidney tumor, and we were hoping that there might be some treatment to, basically reduce the size of the tumor, to have it go into remission and ultimately, hopefully, disappear. But the medical professionals decided the best option was to remove one of his kidneys, the affected kidney. So Andy's now functioning on one kidney, and I'm very sorry about this. And I'm wondering if there is any link between the vaccine and the illness, the actual cancerous agent that was found in his kidney. Because you've never had any issues with health until after the so-called COVID-19 vaccine.
The shot, yeah. No, well, everyone has health problems, but not major ones. No, they all came after the shot.
Yeah,
Um,
you have
the
had.
only good, the only thing is, I know all doctors back each other up and all that, but I generally believe that the surgeon that told me it was there 10 years, and he showed me why it's been there for 10 years. He said, "Look, it multiplies at this rate. You do your maths on your calculator." He showed me, and he said, "By this age, it'll be this size. If it carried on, this would have happened." And he actually showed me in medical terms. So I kind of believe that wasn't linked. But you know what? I think the vaccine might have triggered the growth, maybe, or something similar.
Yeah, it could have exacerbated a cancerous, um, um, you know, um, malignant cancerous tumor. It could have actually exacerbated it and made the condition worse. Yes, I think that's possible.
But when it comes to cardiomyopathy, I definitely blame that onto the vaccine, 1,000,000%, because loads of people have got it. Some people have died with it. It's not a major condition, but it does make your heart beat fast and miss a beat.
Yeah, it's an autoimmune disease, um, phenomenon that results from the spike proteins, which are a biological weapon, and the mRNA vaccine is programming the cells in your body to manufacture biological agents, bioweapons, basically, the spike proteins, and they're the same type of spike proteins that are found on the coronavirus. Now, ostensibly, they did this so that your immune system would be mobilized against the coronavirus by the fact that these mRNA vaccines had manufactured the had programmed the cells to manufacture the spike proteins that resembled the spike proteins on the coronavirus. But the problem with the spike proteins is that they embed themselves on the blood vessel walls, which causes an autoimmune disease reaction, because the antibodies and the immune response goes to the site of the spike protein, and it tries to basically attack the antigen identified as the spike protein, and this causes inflammation and blood clots. Now, some of the people who died of the vaccination, the COVID mRNA vaccination, as it's called, had blood clots that were extremely long, like a foot long. And so when the autopsy was done, they discovered these blood clots, some of which were extremely protracted in length. And, obviously it horrified the coroners. And what is this and how has it been caused? And they eventually came to the conclusion that this blood clotting was the result of the so-called vaccines. So it's an autoimmune reaction. Now, I just want to say that I've been watching some news coming from India about the GBS outbreak, as they call it, outbreak, as if it were a pathogenetic outbreak. It's not the case. Either they don't do their research and don't understand that Guillain-Barré syndrome is an autoimmune disease caused by vaccination, and not just COVID-19 vaccination. Other vaccines have resulted in Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a very debilitating illness, and it has affected a large portion of the population in India. There's so-called outbreaks, and they're making it out that it's some kind of contagious pathogen to create another panic that will result in lockdowns, presumably, and that sort of response. And it's not an outbreak. It's not a virus. Understand this, people. GBS syndrome is not in any way a viral outbreak. It's not a pathogen. It's the result of an autoimmune disease dysfunction that results from vaccination.
So it's the person's developed it over years after having the vaccines.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
and yet these twisted elites can turn this around so that even though they're the guilty parties that have caused this mass pandemic of GBS in India, they turn it around so that we get blamed for not responding to their protocols, which is to perhaps observe some kind of lockdown or quarantine procedure for people that have GBS. They're not contagious. They're not going to spread GBS. It is a condition that comes from vaccination. It's called Guillain-Barré syndrome. Look it up. Do your own research. Do not believe blindly what you are listening to, or do not believe deafly what you're listening to on the news, the mainstream news. Either they haven't done their research properly to find the cause of GBS, or they're lying. Irrespective, they're irresponsible journalists that shouldn't be doing journalism. And people who are in the mainstream will probably say that of what I'm saying. Well, he's not a doctor. What is he talking about? I am a philosopher, and I'm a damn good researcher, and I know what I'm talking about because I've done the research. I wrote 3 books about the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of them got published, and it's I hopefully been widely read.
Yeah, Tim, I didn't know there were so many amazing people around the world. You were the first one I ever met. There's a lot of amazing people that write books. They don't get published because it's politics. But you know,
The world's filthy.
God,
The publishing industry is a disaster.
God,
Amazon has partly destroyed the publishing industry. That's part of the problem. I mean, books by people that are absolute novices that don't even know what a book is are getting published and distributed on Amazon, and I have to compete with that. Now, people don't know what a good book is anymore because there's a glut of bad books on the market through Amazon, and they really don't know what to buy, and
maybe that's the answer.
they don't know
Pretend you're somebody different when you're writing the book.
Yeah. Well, I
When
don't
you
know.
publish the book, I should say. Yeah, it. I guess it's a bit like musicians and other good people that spend years studying for their trade and years practicing whatever the trade is, and then they get kicked in the teeth. When they get qualified. I've seen it millions of places. Yeah, just for an example, head teachers are now running caravan parks just because of the politics and the greed.
Oh, it's disgusting. They've destroyed the teaching profession. Over here, the problem is, teaching education has been turned into a business. So all these private schools have popped up all over the place. There's a glut of them on the market. There's way too many of the schools. None of them can get enough students for enrollment. The poor teachers like me have to work part-time, and we have to work at three or four different tutoring companies to try to get enough hours, and none of them have enough hours, so you're stuck. It's absolutely crazy. And then in the private school, like private high schools, the problems are many. It's not a joy to teach anymore, Andy. You've got the parents dictating terms to the school about how their children are to be treated and how they're to be educated and blah, 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 because they think because they're paying, they dictate terms. Well, if you were a strong administrator, you would stand up to these bully parents and say, look, keep your money. The door is right there. We'll find someone that's going to cooperate and realize that a school makes the rules, not you, the parent. But unfortunately, because of money, they're all caving into the whims of these, not just the parents, but even the students, and they're running the school. And if the kid doesn't want to attend class because, oh, I've got a headache, or, oh, I've got bad menstrual cramps, or, oh, I've got an anxiety problem today, they go into a private room and the administration of the school okays this, it approves it. So what happens if half the students in your class disappear while you're trying to teach? It's just crazy. And they come up with some kind of, excuse for not handing in their assignments, like, oh, I've got anxiety, and they have their, therapist or whoever the doctor is come in and discuss the matter discreetly, confidentially with the administrator. And they tell me, okay, you're going to have to cut down on the assignments and come up with a new assignment schedule so that they hand in maybe half their assignments and not all of them. Oh, how is this fair to the other students? I mean, and to constantly change the rules and the protocols on the teacher. How is a teacher supposed to do their job properly? It's insanity, Andy. You wouldn't want to teach today. You wouldn't.
It's a bit like the lunatics are running the asylum. And now over here, do you know what? In private schools in the UK, the government wants to tax them so much money that the parents can't afford to send the children to private school anymore. I mean, that's never going to work.
Well, I mean, the reason being they want them all indoctrinated in the propaganda that's being, foisted upon the students in the public school system, and they all want them to have the same rot in their heads. I mean, this woke stuff or whatever the propaganda is, they want them all indoctrinated in it. And, the problem with the private school is that the teacher, to some extent, gets to teach what they think, what they personally believe, and to share some of their research findings with the students. And if it doesn't agree with the mainstream education system, then they're seen as somehow deviant or a problem, and they don't want this. And actually, a lot of the schools are creating AI instruction, and they get people like me to design the course so that AI takes over. Okay, so maybe you get employment while you're designing the course and get paid, but once the course is designed and AI takes over, you're permanently out of a job. At least at that school, you're never going to be hired again, and AI is going to take over. Well, if this is happening en masse, then guess what? People like me are unemployed. We're never going to get a teaching job again because AI is going to take over.
Well, in America now you can get driverless taxis, so yeah, the machine is going to rule the man eventually, or the woman.
Yeah. AI and robotics is definitely a threat, and a lot of people are going to be put out of work by this new technology, replacing humans, basically. But in the teaching profession, I believe it's being done so that the powers that should never be can impose their will upon the population. They're going to see that the AI talking heads teach the students exactly what the government wants them to believe. So effectively, government propaganda is what you're going to be indoctrinated in through the talking head AI teachers in all of the institutions of our respective lands.
Ridiculous. Artificial intelligence. I mean, how can that ever work? It's a bit like eat artificial meat, drink artificial milk. It's not gonna taste good forever, is it?
Well,
I
yeah.
don't know, but then when you look at it a different way, if you research the internet, when that first started, or it was gonna start, we had the same sort of fears about that the internet is going to take over and we'll never be able to do this and do that. The cash will be gone, and yeah, but now it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the emerging digital currencies that are going to be issued, there's just been a story about how Trump is now promoting a cryptocurrency, and they plan to make the United States dollar, the US dollar, stand as the world's reserve currency through this new cryptocurrency that they're introducing. And so, with the digital currency, America intends to preserve the US dollar as a reserve currency internationally. Now, the Chinese are also trying to develop a cryptocurrency, a digital currency, and they hope to do the same with the Chinese renminbi. But a lot of people are not going to go for it because they don't trust the Chinese Communist Party. I
Well,
also, yeah,
I
go
was going
ahead.
to say, so in most banking, it's very rare that most people in the world at the moment will actually carry cash in their pockets. So, although we're still in our own currency in their own land, most transactions are done digitally anyway. So, I don't think that would annoy most people that much. Only the older people, maybe because they can't figure out how to do online banking.
Well, it's a problem in a third world country.
Oh
People's
yeah, sorry.
developing country. I don't care. I use the word third world. In the Philippines, for example, the people that are selling goods in the market, they can't make enough to open a bank account because I think you need the equivalent of about 2 or 3 thousand US dollars to open a bank account, and
Well, that's criminal.
most of
I
them are
mean,
poor. They
at
can't.
least over in the Western world, you can open a bank account to pay in either your paycheck or your benefits, and you can open them for free. So to do that in the east of our land, like India and Philippines and Vietnam, I mean that's criminal to charge locals. But maybe there's another way around it. But it's still going to be, even if it's coins and not actual proper cash, even if it's credits, it's it's still going to end up someone needs a bank account. I mean, over here now they're going to make it an offence for new people who come from abroad that don't have a bank account, that you're not allowed to stay unless you got a bank account. They're really going mental over here with stupid rules in
Mm.
our called Blighty. Yeah, sorry.
Wow, that's bad. It's really bad. So yeah, a guy who's selling goods in the market, it's never going to make enough to open a bank account there. So a lot of Filipinos lend money to each other by Gcash or send money to each other by Gcash. Um, that's one perhaps alternative method of doing transactions that could help people that don't have a bank account survive. But I just think, by and large, it's going to be a big problem to impose it and implement it in a country like that, a digital economy.
And Philippines is quite a good country in a bad area, but imagine places in Africa that's even worse off. Yeah, I can get that problem now.
Yeah. I want to also talk about China, Andy, because the population stats that are issued by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, are inaccurate. 1.4 billion is the official count on how many Chinese there are, and it's nowhere near that. The estimates that have been done by independent researchers come up with a figure far, far below that. Conservative estimates are about 800 million, but more realistic figures coming out now put it at the low figure of about 300 to 400 million. Now, the population of the United States is about 300 million, I think, isn't it, Andy? So there you go. I mean, that's a dramatic drop from the figure that is officially quoted by the CCP, that it's 1.4 billion. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. The inaccuracy of the official demographic number of 1.4 billion is not solely attributable to the CCP. The disinformation and the lying, if you like, comes from the municipal level all the way up to the federal level. Municipalities are not reporting the proper demographic figures. And there's many reasons for this. One reason is that because of the single child policy, a lot of mothers that became pregnant would have to go to another town to have their child and then not register the child, so that the child doesn't even appear on the registry. So that's probably going to affect the demographic uh, population tally by underestimating the population figures. But what causes an overinflation of the figures on a municipal basis is that they have elderly people who have been receiving a pension and benefits, and they pass on, and the family doesn't register the death and makes it seem like this relative is still alive so that the family can continue to collect the pension checks. So there's a number of people that are kept alive for perhaps even decades who have actually passed on, but they keep them alive fraudulently so that the family can continue to collect their old age pensions. And then when it comes to the funerary services that happen for the deceased, because many have died from, say, COVID-19 infection, they may not register those deaths in rural farming areas. And so, hundreds, thousands, perhaps even millions of Chinese that have passed away in the country, in the rural areas, are buried locally on the farms, perhaps on the land owned by the families, because they do not have the money to pay for the funerary costs and the cost of burial in a cemetery and so forth. So they're not registering these deaths. And so the birth to death ratio is thrown off by this kind of matter. And so the exact population census cannot be properly tallied. And so all I can tell you is the research that's coming out by these independent researchers are questioning the official CCP count of 1.4 billion people and saying, no, 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 no. The true population is much lower than that. And also, Japan gives China a lot of rice. They import a lot of rice to China. And the amount of rice that's being ordered from Japan has basically been cut in half from before the pandemic. And so that would suggest that the population has dropped by approximately half based on the quotas of rice that are being imported into the country from Japan.
Well, that's probably happening in every country, yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but all I know is that we can just say that there's been a massive depopulation in China. A lot of the villages and towns are basically turning into ghost towns. There's just no one on the streets. And even the big cities like Shanghai, people are saying, wait a minute, where are all the people? I mean, these streets used to be swarming and crowded with people. Where have they all gone? And businesses are obviously suffering because the huge amount of business that they used to attract is not there anymore. There's no business traffic like there used to be. Why is this business decline taking place? Well, because of the population decline. The market share is just not there anymore.
Interesting. We're gonna have to do another show because this one's been a bit short, and I really enjoyed today. And we didn't rehearse this one. I think they're the better shows where we find a subject of the day and then just use it.
Yeah, well, I had so many interesting stories to share that I've been seeing online, and I got a lot of information to share today, so it worked out fine, Andy.
Yeah, if you want to do another one before next weekend, because I'm okay for 2 more weeks, but let me just say thank you to the listeners and close the show. And yeah, please do go to FTJ Media